So now for object-oriented programming, first you need to understand static and non-static, okay, and gradually we'll move on to object-oriented programming. The complete architecture of Selenium is object-oriented. So if you have a fair idea about OOPS concepts, then you will definitely be very comfortable with Selenium. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. I'll just connect my charger because in between of the class the battery might go down. Okay, so I'll just create a new class called static and non-static. Okay. Suppose in this class I have a function public void ABC, and I have another function called public static void XYZ. Technically, this is known as a static function, and this is known as a non-static function. Okay, there is a potential difference between both of them, right? I'll talk about the difference in some time, right? Similarly, if I declare a variable inside a function, say int I equals to 100, right? I declared a variable int I equals to 100 inside this function. Then this variable is known as a local variable. Right, the life of this variable is only inside this function. If I try to access the variable in this function, I will get an error. Okay, so the variables which are declared inside a function are the local variables. If I want a variable which can be accessed in any function, then I need to make a global variable. So that global variable will be out here. You can make it like, say, string x equals to hello, or int y equals to 100, and I can put a static word in front of it as well. This is known as a non-static global variable, and this is known as a static global variable. What effect static and non-static has in if we put static in front of a function or a global variable, we'll see that in some time. But for time being, just understand that there are two types of functions. One are non-static, one are static. Two types of global variables: non-static global variables, static global variables. Local variable is nothing but it is neither static nor non-static. It's simply known as a local variable. The scope of that variable is only inside this function. I cannot access this variable outside the function. Okay, now how is static and non-static helpful? This comes into play, and this is, you actually realize the importance of all this when you start creating objects of a class. What do you mean by creating an object of a class? Well, suppose I have a class called, say, a simple class like game. Okay, this is a class called public class game. Now this class can represent any game which can be played. Okay, so I'll keep a global variable public string name and public string type. These are the two variables. Okay, and a function like public void start play function like public void end play. So what I have done, I made a class, I made two global variables into it. Okay, these are non-static global variable. This is also non-static global variable. Let's talk about non-static first. This is a non-static function. This is also a non-static function. Right. Now inside this I'll write system.out.println playing the game, and along with that I'll print the name of the game. And similarly over here, ending the game and play, and I'll write the name of the game. Right? So in a very simple way, I've created a game class with two global variables, right, and two functions, start play and end play. Fine. Now suppose I make a new class called TestGame.java with the main function. In game.java I did not mention any main function because I never wanted to execute that file as a standalone file. Okay, so right, and when you finish this, the test game comes up. Right, over here I will create the object of the game class. Now, what happens when you create the object, and how do you create the object? You create the object of the class by writing new game. Okay, I can write, if I write this line 3 times, then it is said that 3 objects have been created. And what lies under the object? Okay, in the memory it looks something like this. 3 objects will be created. Each object will have a copy of non-static variable. Each object will have the name, type, play and end play functions in it. Each of these objects. Okay, although the non-static things are declared by once, but every object will hold its own copy of non-static stuff. Alright, now you can write like this: game G1 equals to new game, game G2 equals to new game, and game G3 equals to new game. So what will happen is that in the memory, these were the 3 games, right? Okay, you can have 3 pointers to it, 3 references. These are known as references. Okay, these will be G1, G2 and G3. With the help of these 3 references, you can access any of the non-static stuff present inside any of the object. Like with G1 I can access this object, with G2 I can access this object, G3 I can access this object. This is object, okay, and this is reference. Reference and objects are different. Reference, they point towards the object. Okay, now if I write G1 dot name equals to football. Okay, G1 dot type equals to, it's an outdoor game. So what I am doing is, I am actually, with the help of G1 object, I am assigning the value name and type out here. This will still be blank. The other copies will still be blank. Nothing will go inside G2 and G3. Okay. Similarly, I'll write G2 dot name equals to chess and G2 dot type equals to indoor. Okay. Now suppose I write G1 dot. When you type a dot, you will get all the non-static stuff associated with the class in the list. Out here, the non-static stuff is like name, type, these ones. Okay. Then you'll have the function called endPlay. Then you'll have a function called startPlay associated with it. For other functions, just forget about them for time being. Okay. But the functions which were there or the variables, the global variables, basically all the non-static stuff which was part of the game class is actually there in this G1 object. Okay. So if I write G1 dot start, right? If I write G1 dot start, what will happen is that the start play function will be called, and as I am calling the start play function of G1, okay, this will access the variable from this object only. So when I call the start play function, it writes playing the game and the name of the game. So if I am calling it on G1, the start play function will access the variables of G1. If I write G2 dot start play, it will access the variables of G2. So when you run this code, it will print playing the game football and playing the game chess. This is coming from this line and this is coming from this line. The function is same, but different object reference is calling. So whatever variables are associated, or whichever object is associated with this object reference, the variables of the functions of those objects will be called. Okay, fine. Alright, so now what I can do is I can now write, if I write G3 dot start play. Now I never assigned a name or a type to G3. So when you run this, it will play null, it will print null, because by default the value for a string is null. If it is not initialized, it is null. Had there been a variable, then the value of that variable would have been 0, like an integer. Default value of an integer is 0, and for a string it is null. Okay, so you don't have an object initialized as of now. That's why we have this thing coming up, that is a null coming up for this G3. If I initialize G3, if I write G3 dot name equals to cricket and G3 dot type equals to outdoor, then G3 will also get initialized, right? And I'll write G3 dot start play. So when you run this, see, playing the game cricket in the end. First it printed null for this, then cricket. Similarly, if I have to access the variables, I can access them. I can write system.out.println G3.name. This will just print cricket. That is what is the state of the variable, okay, in the G3 object. Okay, so you, with the help of the object, you can access all the non-static properties of an object. And G1, G2, G3 are references. These are not the objects. If I write over here G3 equals to G2, what will happen is that in the memory, this G3 object will be gone. This thing will go away, and this will now point to the location where G2 is pointing. This object cannot be accessed anymore because no reference is pointing towards it. So if I write on this line system.out.println G3.name, this will print the name of G2, which is chess. So when you run this now, you see that it prints chess in the console. Right? Now after this, sorry. Now after this, if you have like this, if you write G3 dot name equals to carom. So what will happen is that in the memory, the name variable out here will get the value carom. So G3 has changed the state, but G2 will also get the updated value. So even if I write after this G2 dot name, because G1 and G3 and G2 point towards the same object, or G3 dot name, it will print the same name. So when you run this, it will print carom for both of these. Right? So this is about objects. This is how you create objects of a class. If the non-static variables will have multiple copies under multiple objects, and you can assign them different states and different values, although in class you just mention them once. Okay. Now what about static? I told you, right, there are two types of global variables and functions. One are static, one are non-static. I discussed the static ones. Now what about, I discussed the non-static ones. What about the static ones? Well, if I have something which is common for all the objects, okay, there can be something, right, which is common for all the objects. I can keep it static so that all the objects will refer the common thing from one single memory location. There is no point in making a copy of that common thing inside every object by making it static. Okay, so static is something which is common for all the objects. For example, in game.java, we know that I can declare a variable called int winner equals to 1. So we know that every game will have one winner. So I can make it static like this. Right? So right? So this will be out here, winner I have made static. So for all the objects, this winner variable will be present at a common memory location somewhere over here. Right? So in order to access the static global variable, I can access it like this. Static can be accessed without object, because static is not a part of the object. It can simply be accessed like this. The class of the name of the class, that is game dot winner. The name of the class dot the static stuff. You can access it directly like this. So when you run this code, it will directly print 1 over here, because I am accessing it with the help of name of the class dot winner. I can also access static with the object. I can write g1 dot winner. I can use it like this as well. But do not use the static stuff with the object. It's not recommended thing. Use it with the name of the class dot the static stuff. What is static variable or a static function, whatever it is. Okay, right? Similarly, if I have a function like public void abc or any function, and I want some features of every game. I know that some features of every game are common. So I can keep a static thing. I can keep this function as static. So this function will also be common to all the games, and you can simply write game dot you can call the function directly with the class name. There is no need to create an object for a static stuff because static is not the part of the object. Okay, so if anybody has got any questions, right, you can ask me. You can move your mouse to the top of the window. There will be a participants tab in WebEx. You can go there and you can unmute or mute yourself and you can ask a question. Currently I have kept everybody on mute, right, and if you want to unmute yourself, you can click in front of your name and you can unmute, right. So please stop me if you have any doubts, right. So this is about static and non-static. Okay, go to my website, qtpselenium.com, and go for online training section. And out here I have kept the video number 3, which is based on object-oriented programming. You can also watch this video. Okay, I have taken various concepts inside it regarding object-oriented and static and non-static. Now, when we write in Selenium or in Java language, when we write the main function, it is static in nature. Now, why is main static? So that who calls the main function? The system, the internal system of Java, the JVM, calls the main function. It is a function which is called by itself. Okay. Now, if it is static, then whosoever is calling it, he does not need to create the object of the class TestNg to call this main function. That's why main is static in nature. It is directly called by the system. Internally it is called like name of the class dot main. So our program starts executing. The object of TestNg is not created to start the program. Okay, the main function is directly called as it is static in nature, right? So internally Java calls the main function like this, TestNg.main. That's why main is static. What if I remove static in front of the main? When I run this will give you an error. Main method is non-static, is not static. So you have to make it static. I'm telling you this because sometimes in interviews they ask you this. It's not related to Selenium at all. Fine. Now talking about Selenium. In Selenium everything is inbuilt. Okay. You need to create the objects of the inbuilt classes in Selenium. Fine. The classes they are inbuilt. Okay. Okay, all the classes like Firefox driver, iDriver, everything, all these classes are inbuilt inside Selenium. So you don't need to make your own classes, you just need to make the objects of existing classes, right? For doing that, the first thing is that you need to configure Selenium in Eclipse. Like I heard many people telling me that fine Ashish, I have installed Selenium on my machine. I have installed it successfully. Selenium has been installed. There is nothing known as installing Selenium. There is no exe file of Selenium. You have jar files in Selenium. Okay. Now what are jar files? Okay. You know that this is the project in Eclipse. If you go to this location, then I told you yesterday that in the source folder we will be keeping all the Java files, right? And in the bin folder, the class files corresponding to Java files will be there. Okay. Now when I have to release this project in the market, suppose customers, they want these class files, because when we release the project in the market, we release the class files, right? If I have to release these class files, I just cannot put an individual file on my website and ask the end customers to download the file. Okay. What I will do is I will put all these files in a zip file and I will upload it on my website, and I'll ask the people that fine, download all these files from my website. This is the link for the zip file. In Java, the zip file is known as a JAR file. Okay. So if I have to release these jars, these classes in the market, so what I do, I make one file known as the JAR file and put all the three class files into it, and I will put the download link of this JAR file on my website. What happens when you install Java on your machine? You see this JRE system library out here. This is nothing but Java which was installed on your machine. Okay. If you expand this, you will see various JAR files. Each JAR file will have a number of class files in it. These are internal classes of Java language. You can use all these classes as well, fine. But the concept is that a JAR file is a combination of many class files. Alright. And you can download the JAR file and associate it with your project, and you can use the classes present in that particular JAR file. For example, when I downloaded Java, all these jars, they got downloaded. Okay, and in this out here, in this class called, for example, I am using the string class. String is nothing but an inbuilt class in Java. So this class is somewhere in the JAR files, and I am using this in my program. Similarly, for Selenium as well, whosoever made Selenium made the JAR files. You need to download the JAR files, configure the JAR files with Eclipse so that they come into your project, and you can use the existing classes from the JAR files. Okay. Now, how do you download Eclipse? Sorry, how do you download Selenium? Right. For that, you need to go to the Selenium website. And just type download Selenium over here. Go to the link. Right. So now this is the Java client version, right? And it's got the Java doc location over here, right? And this is the Java download link. When you click on this download link, a zip file will come and you extract that zip file. Okay, I already have it with me. You get a folder something like this. Inside this folder, you will have these two JAR files. Okay, forget about other JAR files. I actually took them for Android thing. But you will have these two JAR files, Selenium Java 2.21 in your case, and Java 2.21 sources. And you will have the library folder, and inside that library folder, other JAR files will be present. Okay, so these are the JAR files for Selenium. And you need to include Selenium JAR files in your project now. This is also known as the Selenium API. Okay, API means Application Programming Interface. That is, it is nothing but a set of JAR files. Okay, for example, this is the core Java API. It is nothing but a set of JAR files. Now, I need to include the Selenium JAR files in the project. For that, you need to right click on the project, go to the properties, and go to Java build path option out here. Go to library section. Okay, I'll repeat again. Right click on the project, go to properties, go to the Java build path option out here, and select libraries. Currently, JRE system library is associated with the project. Okay. Currently, JRE system library is associated with the project. You can add external jars and bring in more libraries in this project. Okay, you can click on add external jars and you can include the jar files of Selenium. That is, you can go to C drive in my case. Yes. So these are the two jar files. Select both of them and add external jars. Go to library. Select all these jar files and add them. Fine. So these jar files will now be a part of your project under referenced library section. If you do not see these reference library sections, then you might be in a wrong perspective. Out here in Eclipse, there are various perspectives. Sometimes you are in Java EE perspective. Because of that, what happens is that the jar files, they look something like this. Okay, Java EE perspective is for website development. It's for advanced Java. You don't need to be in this perspective. Always work in Java perspective inside Eclipse. So go to the Java perspective, you'll see reference libraries, and under that you'll see the Selenium jar files. So that's all. Selenium has been configured in your project. Whenever you make a new project, you'll have to configure Selenium inside it like this. Now I can start using the features of Selenium. Okay, so this is the core Java API and this is the Selenium API. What's an API? I'll again describe in a little bit detailed fashion. There is a core Java API in Java. There is a Selenium API. There is something known as POI API, which helps you to read Excel files very easily with the help of Java. Then something is known as a structs framework or structs API. That's for the advanced Java to develop websites with Java. So each API has got its set of own files. Generally jar files, but in some cases there are some other files as well. In case of Selenium, we just have got jar files. Okay, the core Java API is something which is installed on your system when you install Java, when you install core Java. But rest of the APIs you have to download from the internet and configure in your project like this, the way I have configured the reference library section over here. Okay, so now about Selenium, right? How do I start working with Selenium? For doing that, I'll just go to Google once more and I'll write download Selenium. Oh, right, this one, and this is the Java doc, the documentation of Selenium. Let's go into the documentation. Now, all these things, all these are the inbuilt classes inside the Selenium API. This is the Selenium Webdriver API. If you look at the older version of Selenium, that is Selenium RC, if you look at the older version, then this was just the older version. It was so small. Although it's good, it works, it solves a purpose, right? But it's not having so many features. Out there in the latest version, WebDriver, they have got so many classes with so many features, right? For example, there are drivers inside it. There is a class for Firefox called the Firefox driver. Okay, if I can create the object of this class now, I can go to my code and I'll create a new class called Selenium sample. Okay, in this I will create the object of the inbuilt class. Out here what I did, I made my own class called game.java and I created the object of game.java out here. Fine. But now out here in Selenium sample, I'll create the object of the class Firefox driver, which is already there inside some jar file which is present inside one of these jar files. Okay. If I have to find out where this Firefox driver class is there inside the jar file, okay, then there are two steps. The first step is that click on this arrow, link with editor. Okay, link with editor, click on this arrow, and what will happen is that Selenium sample.java will be highlighted because this Java file is right now open. If I open test.game.java, then in Eclipse test.game.java will be highlighted. If I open game.java, then game.java. So this icon is very important. If you have a big project and you need to always link up with the file which you have currently opened, so always keep this thing clicked, link with editor. Okay, and if I have to find out where the Firefox driver class is there, okay, you hit the combination of Control, Shift and T. You hit the combination of Control, Shift and T of Eclipse, you'll have this thing, and you type Firefox. So all the classes in your source folder as well as in the jar files will start coming up, and one of them is Firefox driver. If you double click on it, it will try to open the class file. The class file cannot be opened, but it will be highlighted in the package explorer because I have linked it with the editor, and it is inside this jar file. Okay, so I will use this class. This class has been made by the person who made Selenium. I included the jar file having this class in my project, and now I can make the object. I can write Firefox driver equals to new Firefox driver. Okay, and you have to import this class actually from the jar file. You can move your mouse over this class and select the import option. So when I write this much Firefox driver equals to new Firefox driver, and I run my code, hold on. So what happens is that a blank Firefox window opens up. Okay, and if you just write like this, new Firefox as well, okay, this will also open up the blank window, because just by creating the object of Firefox driver, you can just open a blank window, a blank Mozilla window. This Mozilla window will not have the kind of bookmarks you have in your regular Mozilla window. This will not have the add-ons which you have in the Mozilla window. Why this is not having is because Selenium starts a new Firefox profile every time. In coming lectures, I will be talking about Firefox profiling as well. Firefox profile is important especially for HTTPS websites. Okay. Now, in order to have a reference, in order to work with that Firefox, I have to assign a reference to this object of Firefox driver. Okay, now you can write d1 dot. When you write d1 dot, you have all the functions which are associated with Firefox driver, like find element, okay, like a function called get. This will get you to a particular URL. Okay, I give the URL name as gmail.com. and let's see whether it goes to Gmail or not. So when I open this, it never goes to Gmail, rather it throws an error. Why? Okay, many people make this mistake. The protocol is very important. Okay, I deliberately gave this because you have to give the protocol, whether it is HTTP, FTP, HTTPS, whatever it is. right? Please mention the protocol. Alright, when you run this now, you see the browser actually goes to gmail.com. Okay, now this way I can also open up two different browsers. I can write Firefox driver d1 equals to this and d2, which will go to bbc.com. So these two are different objects in the memory. I'm calling the same get function for the different objects but passing a different URL. So one Firefox window will open Gmail, another will go to BBC. So when you run this, I expect two windows to open now. The first window goes to Gmail and the second window, it should go to BBC. Okay, something's wrong. Something not wrong. Yeah, okay, here. Okay, I wrote d1.get in the second case as well. This is a mistake. d1.get gmail.com and d1.get BBC. This will just navigate d1. It will not navigate d2. So I'll have to write d2 over here. That's why on the first window itself BBC came up. Right. So I'll run this again. You see that this is how we create the objects in Selenium. It's all Java based. Okay, the concepts of Java are very important. This is the mistake which most people do. They don't concentrate on Java and they try to just directly work on Selenium. You will end up wasting more time this way. Okay, and you lose interest in the end. Right? If you know Java, then it's a piece of cake. So you see that it goes to BBC and it also goes to Gmail. Similarly, for working with IE or Chrome, we have got Internet Explorer drivers and Chrome drivers. Right now, Safari driver has also come up, but I have come to know that there are defects in it. Okay, I'm not sure about that. I never tried it. It just came around 1 week back. Okay, for Internet Explorer driver, we have something known as, for working on Internet Explorer, we have this Internet Explorer driver. You can write like this: Internet Explorer driver or d2 equals to new Internet Explorer driver. And what this will do is, when you run the code, this will open a blank IE. I've got i6 on my machine. I'm using Windows Server operating system, that's why. And similarly, you can fire the get function with d2 as well. It will go to Google or wherever you want it to go. In Windows 7 machine, okay, you have got Windows 7, then you will be having i8 with you or i9. You get an error out here. In that case, the error is related to protected mode. On your machines, you will get it because most of the people, they use I. You will get an error related to protected mode. What you need to do is, you need to just go to Google and just search. You need to do some settings in I before launching it. Okay? You need to just search for turn off protected mode in I. Okay, how to disable protected mode in i8. You can search for this, you will get the results, right? Follow the instructions and turn it off and then run. It will run fine. If you don't, you basically have to bring the protected mode to same level for all the tabs in the I settings. You will come to know about it when you open the settings. Okay, just make sure that you turn off the protected mode. Okay, no need for that, right? And this Internet Explorer driver will work for you. It will not work for you if you do not change it. Fine. Similarly, Chrome driver is there for working on Chrome. Chrome driver d3 equals to, I'll write new Chrome driver. I'll import the Chrome driver. You'll have to import everything. Chrome driver, Internet Explorer driver, Firefox driver. You have to import everything. And if I run this code now, it should open IE and a Chrome. It opens up an IE, but it fails to open a Chrome. It throws an error. Okay, basically it says that, the exception says that, illegal state exception, the path to the Chrome driver, okay, hold on. The path to the Chrome driver executable must be set by the webdriver.chrome.driver property. What is this? Basically, it's not able to find the exe of Chrome. Generally what happens, it tries to look for the exe in the program files, but Chrome is installed somewhere else. In my machine, if I go to the properties of the Chrome, it is installed in documents and settings. So it's not in program files. Selenium was not able to find it, so it's not able to open it. So I'll have to write a command over here to give the path of exe file for Chrome. So for that command, the command is system.set the property the property name is mentioned in the error actually. It's webdriver.chrome.driver. It is out here. It must be set by the webdriver.chrome.driver property. So you have to set a system property. System.set property, this is the key, and the value will be the path to the exe of Chrome. So I'll go to this location. I'll get this path. Put it out here. In Java, always remember, whenever you have to give a slash, you have to give a double slash. It's an escape sequence because of the escape sequence. If you are giving a slash in the path, you have to give a double slash in Java. Otherwise, you'll get an error. Okay, now when you run this code, if you run this, this will open an IE as well as Chrome. You see that? Right? So IE has also been opened and a Chrome has also been opened. So this is how you can work with multiple browsers. I hope everybody got yesterday's URL. Yesterday's video I had uploaded it. Everybody can watch it. So this is for today. So what we did, we actually studied about object-oriented programming. We started with a simple class called game. We created some non-static and static features inside it, functions and variables. And I created a class called TestNg. Inside it, I created objects of the game class, 3 objects, and I accessed the non-static as well as static properties of the object. Okay. So the non-static stuff is the part of the class. When I'm writing out here in my Selenium sample, when I'm firing the function d1.get, this get is a non-static function. Okay. If I write the name of the class Internet Explorer driver dot, this is the static feature inside it. The class name dot the variable name, right? We'll talk about all these things. Fine. Now, then we saw what is an API, what is a JAR file. JAR file is a collection of multiple class files, and API is a collection of multiple JAR files, you can say. Okay. It's a complete project. API is a complete project. You can download the API and you can configure all the JAR files in your Eclipse file. After configuring the JAR files, you can use the existing classes from the JAR files which I used out here. Okay, and